Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Vikings Central podcast. I got two guests here today, and you know them both. I got Tom Gorski. You can follow him on Twitter at ThomasGorski33. And then I got my man Dustin. You can follow him on Twitter at ThatVikingsFan8. They've both been contributors on the podcast and will be contributors in the future. Was the Vikings are hiring Wes Phillips. He was a Rams tight end coach for the last few years, along with pass game coordinator. So we're getting some continuity with him and Kevin O'Connell, which is always a good thing. He's very highly regarded around the National Football League. He's only 43 years old. So, he's got good experience, but, he's got new ideas to go with Kevin O'Connell as well. He was also with Washington from 2014 to 2018, which is also kind of interesting because, obviously Kevin O'Connell and Wes Phillips were there when Kirk was there with the Redskins, or excuse me, the Commanders now. And, and then he's son of Wade Phillips, former head coach of the Cowboys, defense coordinator, and then also the grandson of head coach legend Bum Phillips. What was your guys' initial thoughts? I know that it was the rumor for a while that Wes Phillips was going to be the guy, but then they had a couple interviews with the Chargers quarterback coach, and then also Thomas Brown of the Rams. Thomas, what was your thoughts on that?
I think the hire was inevitable. I would say, it just seems like O'Connell and Phillips, they just have this connection, and it's been reported that Phillips is going to take over the O'Connell role that he was to McVay. So he's kind of going to be his right hand man, and I think knowing that O'Connell's first time head coach, he's going to want to bring in someone he trusts. So to me, Wes Phillips was always the best hire all along. I'm not necessarily sure how he'll do at it, considering that O'Connell's going to be calling plays like he announced in his press conference.
Right.
But he's going to help design plays. It's going to be O'Connell and Phillips running the show offensively. And I think just the biggest question going forward will be, can Phillips transition into that role? Because he was a tight ends coach,
Right.
wasn't he? And pass game coordinator.
Yep.
So it's definitely a big promotion for him and a big step forward. At age, I believe he's 43. But I think at 43 and all the experience he's had in the league, I think absolutely he's ready to make that jump.
Sure.
It's just another big question is, what's the offense going to be like?
Right.
Is Kurt going to be here or is he not? Is Cook going to be here? Is he not? Is Thielen going to be there's just so many question marks that have to be answered where if everything stays as it is now, the offense should be top 10.
Oh, for sure.
Phillips will probably he'll probably get recognized fairly quickly with the success over here,
Yep.
and maybe O'Connell could start his own tree.
Right.
But yeah, I think so far it's a really good hire, and it's a safe hire for O'Connell. It's someone he's comfortable with in his first time, and I think it's a really solid hire, and I have no complaints about it whatsoever.
Awesome. Nope, I agree. And Dustin, obviously, like we were talking about, continuity within the organization. Good relationships. I think that's what they're really focusing on. So, obviously Kevin O'Connell is going to find the guy that he's comfortable with, and like Tom said, it's Wes Phillips. So, what did you think of the hire initially, and do you think these guys are going to be able to, if Kirk's still here, continue to be successful him, or if they draft quarterback, do you think they're going to be able to develop that quarterback in the future as well?
Just going off of what Thomas said earlier, I have no complaints about the hire. I was pretty excited about Wes Phillips. For Phillips and O'Connell, they're first time play callers. So I'm kind of curious on how that will look. But I am excited at the same time. So with Wes Phillips too, at being the tight ends coach, the past couple of years, going all the way back to, 2012 or whatnot. He's made career years out of all those tight ends, Jordan Reed in Washington. And then just this past year, we got Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett, having, almost not career years, but, pretty great years. But, I got nothing else to say. I guess I guess I'm just pretty excited about it.
Yeah,
So
and I think it's a good hire. I think it's a good hire. And he initially his name was the first one that came up, and every time there's a new report, it kind of just kept leading back to Wes Phillips, especially like Ian Rappaport and stuff like that. And kept talking about Wes Phillips and that relationship with Kevin O'Connell, and like you said, he was a tight end coach for the last several years. So hopefully, I know we have a new tight ends coach this year, but hopefully, they really. Irv Smith has a good year. He's healthy, and I think he'll be able to really take off in this offense. And it's just exciting time for the Vikings. Whole new coaching staff and everything like that. So it's just something to look forward to and something to keep an eye on how these guys are going to continue to improve this offense. And like you guys said, this should be a top 10 unit no matter what. I mean, even if we get like a bridge quarterback in, if they do decide to move on from Kirk, say like Marcus Mariota or Jameis Winston, this offense should still be top 10. They got all the weapons to do that, and now they got the offensive minds to be able to continue to improve it. All right, guys, I wanted to get into some bold offseason predictions because there's a lot we could choose from. Because this offseason is going to a lot of big time decisions, a lot of big time events that are going to be taking place here in the next few weeks, next several months. Dustin, what do you think is a big offseason happening that you could see going down this year for the Minnesota Vikings?
for me, I think it's kind of every year, but I think there will be a surprising veteran that gets either cut
Yep.
or traded. And then a list of players I have could either be as surprising as Michael
Yeah.
Pierce, as obvious, maybe as obvious as Kirk Cousins, Adam Thielen, or even Harrison Smith. So I just have a surprising cut or trade
Yeah,
around the corner.
and I think at least one of those guys are for sure going to move on. They have a lot of decisions to make. They have a lot of cap room to open up. We talked about this last was it Friday, Tom? They even got to get cap space for the draft class. We're not nowhere near.
They got to clear about $30 to $40 million within the next few
Yeah,
months. It's gonna be look.
yeah. We have a lot of stuff to figure out, and with a new GM, new head coach, we don't know what like. Usually, you'd have an idea with Rick Spillane and Mike Zimmer what route they're going to want to go in. We really have no idea. I mean, we can speculate, we can look into their past, but we have no idea which way they're going to go. And Tom, what are you kind of looking at for this offseason?
There's a lot of ways they could go with this. Kirk Cousins is the obvious name, but as of now, according to all reports, whether it's smokescreen or not, it seems like he's here to stay, which is very unfortunate, which means I think this other player is going to have to go if they keep him, and that's Danielle Hunter. Because we didn't hear O'Connell mention Danielle Hunter in his press conference.
Right.
You heard Anthony Barr, who's not even under contract as of now.
Yeah.
You heard Harrison Smith, Eric Kendricks talk about all three levels of the game of football on the defensive side of the ball. But you don't hear Danielle Hunter. Andre Patterson left to join the Giants. And that's his mentor. Like when he was in a lockout, like when the Vikings, like when he was like not even contacting them, he was in contact with Andre Patterson. Yeah. And I'm not sure how that's going to go well behind the scenes. And the fact that Minnesota seems committed to Kirk Cousins, which I don't know why at age 34 you want to build around someone that old. You typically build around a rookie or you build around a second or third year player.
Right.
But I don't see how both guys can return. Cousins has a cap hit of $45 million. Hunter has a cap hit of $26.1 million. There is a 0% chance either of those guys come back at that current cap number. So I think Danielle Hunter being traded, and I don't know exactly like what the package will entail, but if I had to like make like a guess, I'm gonna say Danielle Hunter could be on draft day. Hunter gets traded to the Giants. The Vikings will trade Danielle Hunter in the 12th overall pick to move up to pick 7. And we'll say they get like a 3rd round pick this year and a 2nd next year. That seems like good enough compensation to move on from Danielle Hunter, who's played 6 games in 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think the bold prediction part here is the Vikings are going to land a top guy who falls out of the top 5, such as edge rusher Kayvon Thibodeau from Oregon. I think he fits that 3-4 scheme. He's very raw when it comes to pass rushing, but he's no doubt the best run stopper in this draft class. He's 6'5", 258. This past season, he only played 10 games and he opted out. He had 50 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. His NFL comparison, according to Lance Zerlin, is Brian Arakpo.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't necessarily see that. I get Jadeveon Clowney vibes coming out of South Carolina.
Yep.
But according to a personnel director for an NFC team, here's what they had to say, and I quote, about Thibodeau coming out of Oregon. He's not fluid like Clowney, but he has the same type of upside coming out. He's going to be getting better as a pass rusher, but he might only top out at 10 or 11 sacks a season. I don't see him as that dude in that area, which I'm okay with this because I don't want someone who's necessarily going to be primarily a run stopper or a pass rusher. It's nice. We're seeing a big mix of just like a balance between guys like a Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith. You know, guys from the Packers who they've just been game wreckers for years past. So if Minnesota does move up, you have to find a replacement for Danielle Hunter. And Thibodeau's supposed to go top 3. So right. I think if he falls out of that top 5 range and you move up, and he's only a sophomore redshirt, so he's only like 20, 21 years old.
Yep.
He's still very raw. And any other year, for the past few years, he's been projected to be like a top 2 pick. Then Aiden Hutchinson broke out, so his name kind of got forgotten about. But I think my bold prediction is Danielle Hunter will probably be moved. And if so, I think the Giants are a big spot. And if they do move up, I think they would select Kayvon Thibodeau if he's on the board. If not, then my next choice would probably be Derek Stingley from LSU. That seems like the most logical pick. If they do move up, those seem like the 2 names that are probably going to be tied to them.
Yeah, and I agree. Something's got to give. Kirk Cousins, Danielle Hunter are not going to come back at both those cap numbers. Something's got to give. Which way are you going to go? And I agree. Are you really going to go with a 34-year-old quarterback who's kind of reached his ceiling? Or are we gonna get rid of our 27-year-old pass rusher in his prime? I know he's had injury history, but when he is on the field, he's a top 5 player at his position in the entire National Football League. So, and I just think our defense needs way more work than our offense. So Danielle Hunter is like the perfect guy to like build around for that defense, look to the future a little bit. I don't know. It's something's got to give. Something's got to give, and you know if
I don't understand. Like I understand from like the player and the play he puts on the field, like why people would like to continue going forward with Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, it doesn't seem like it's even Vikings fans anymore. It's just Kirk stans versus Kirk haters. You know, it just seems like that's what it is on Twitter every single day.
It is.
And I think if you didn't have that top-tier cap number tied to Kirk Cousins and the fact that he's refusing to take a pay cut, I think everyone would be okay with Cousins if he was making about $25 to $30 million a year. Because that's ultimately probably what his worth is.
Right.
So this team is just so far away, in my opinion, where this entire defense needs an overhaul at all 3 levels.
Yeah.
Your offense, you still need 2 offensive line positions, arguably a wide receiver 3. Your running back's getting older. So I think if you start like the small like reset, retool now, build around Hunter on the defensive side of the ball, move on for Cousins, bring in a bridge for a year. I don't see why that's so difficult. And I know people don't want to like go back to the Ponder days, the Tavares Jackson, the Gus Frerotte days. They went to the NFC Championship with Case Keenum. So, I mean, their system and the organization as a whole is stable. Right. They're not the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Right.
Okay, you have a top 10 offense. It doesn't matter who you bring in as quarterback. You know, you're not going to get a Christian Ponder type production from a guy. Yeah. So, I think just the thing you need to understand is you have to move on from Kirk, and you need to protect Hunter at all costs. Because Cousins doesn't elevate players around him. He just plays well with the guys that are around him. But top-level elite quarterbacks, they elevate their guys around them. Josh Allen and Diggs. Diggs got there. Yeah, he elevated Josh Allen, but then once Josh Allen developed, he elevated Diggs. And Diggs has had phenomenal numbers. So I just think if it does come down to Hunter or Cousins, and they choose to roll with Cousins and they move Hunter, that just means that they're not confident that they could find another quarterback. Because I think if you keep Cousins either at his current cap number or you extend him for the $40 to $45 million a year, it shows that they just want to take the safe route.
Yeah.
We have our guy. I could get the most out of Kirk. We're going to live or die by Kirk. It's just if they move on from Hunter, that just raises a lot of concern for me. And that maybe the direction of the team, they have no idea which way that they want to go yet. You need to figure it out. If you want to retool, reset, you keep Hunter and you move Cousins. If you think you could compete now for a Super Bowl, which I don't think you can, then they're going to keep Cousins. So that's the two directions I think we're going to see them kind of go.
Right.
Yeah, you guys can just give me your thoughts. But I think that's what it comes down to when it comes to Hunter or Cousins.
I think we all agree that Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. He's a good quarterback. We don't really have issues with his quarterback play. It's just that cap number. It straps us down financially everywhere. And it doesn't make sense to go on with that cap hit of $45 million. I mean, you can restructure, but then you tie yourself into probably until 2024 or 2025. So I don't know. I know there's all this talk that the Vikings are big fans of Kirk's. Kevin O'Connell has a good working relationship with him, but it sounds like a lot of agent speak, like the agents feeding this to Ian, to Adam, and all these guys to I don't know, boost trade value, or I don't know. What do you think, Dustin? I mean, we both like Kirk. Tom even likes Kirk. I know, but that's just the cap hit. What are you kind of looking at on your end?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough situation for Kwesi and Kevin, just as new people to come in here, without having Spielman and Zimmer. They know how things operate, but it'll definitely be a tough decision for them. If they had to choose between Hunter and Cousins, I don't know. I feel like they'd be kind of split on that decision, if they make a decision at all on that. But if anything, with Cousins, it's either you trade him or extend him. You wanna open up cap now, or build for the future, and it's depending on how Cousins wants to look at it. If he wants to help now, or just see his way out the door. So, being 34 years old, he's not, he is what he is, but like I said before, it's either extension or trade. So.
And, Kirk, I don't know if he's had a fair shot these last 3 years with Mike Zimmer, running things. So I think it would be interesting to see him play with Kevin O'Connell, Wes Phillips. I want to see if he does have another level. I don't know if he does. He's 34 years old. He's probably hit his ceiling already. But I think it would be interesting to see that. But I think it just makes the most sense to probably move on, get a trade going. His trade value is at an all-time high, and look to the future in the next year or two. But another little interesting thing, he had posted on social media that he's moving or canceling he's got some camp that he does for kids, and he's done it in Michigan for forever. And for some reason, he's putting it on hold, and it's just interesting timing, and I don't know.
He ended up deleting it because a lot of Vikings fans, I think, were commenting on it. But I know that was pure reckless speculation that people were just trying to look way too deep into, because he's had that in Michigan and Minnesota for years.
Yep.
But the last 2 years it's been canceled due to COVID.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably what happened again.
Yep.
And he simply was just okay, we'll just when this pandemic's over, then we'll go back to it. But Vikings fans, instead of just evaluating it, they went from 1 to 10 right away. Okay, he's getting traded. He's gone. Yeah. He's putting his house up for sale. Someone check his social media. That's that's how a lot of fans are. I mean, we saw the Kyler Murray steam from a few weeks back. Then we saw Watson.
Yeah.
As soon as the rumor came out, there were jersey swaps. Everyone's like, okay, screw Cousins. Watson, get over here. Who cares about the allegations? I mean, it was just that's why the Vikings fan base is so great,
Yeah.
and especially the Twitter world, is because they go all out, which is
They
great. I don't know. I mean, Cousins ended up deleting it, which I thought was the most fascinating and most interesting part to me.
Yeah.
Was the fact that he deleted it. Where I just wonder if Cousins. I mean, this guy has to like see stuff on social media that people say about him, or see in the national media. I mean, if I was in his spot, I would be tired of Minnesota, and I would try to work a trade out with my agent just because of. I don't think they appreciate me. Like that's how I would feel like if I was Cousins.
Right.
Like he just seems like that guy who needs to be like appreciated and wanted. Because he's. Why do you think Sean Mannion was his backup for years? He didn't want competition. He wanted to be their guy.
Right.
Which I mean, I don't know how much more clearly we could tell you you're our guy
Right.
with the first fully guaranteed contract in NFL history.
Yep.
You get another guaranteed contract from the Vikings. I mean, how much more does the guy want?
Right.
But yeah, I just again he's gonna be the first domino to fall. It's either an extension or trade, but there's a lot of steam out there. So
Yeah,
where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah, there is, and like you said, the most interesting part was him deleting it. So obviously, they're reading the replies, or their agent said, "Okay, get that off." I don't know. People are catching on, or something like that. I don't know. It's just interesting timing and everything like that. I don't know.
I think he did post that on his Instagram story
Yep.
as well, or Instagram somewhere. I think he kept that
Okay.
up too on his story. So I think it was only on Twitter, which that's where most of the backlash
no.
is. But
Yeah, I think Twitter's a little more
Yeah.
hostile than Instagram. Yeah, Twitter, especially Vikings Twitter. There's always something going on.
Oh, yeah.
Always something going on. It could be like the most boring day in the world, and then something on Twitter will happen, and then you'll be entertained for the rest of the day or something like that. But
for the rest of the week,
yeah, exactly. No, I didn't get to my bold off-season prediction, and I'm kind of like in the same boat as you guys. We all were talking about, Dustin said, oh, like a veteran player is going to get cut or traded. Could be a number of guys. Thomas went a little bit more specific on saying it's going to be Danielle Hunter. And I actually went the route of people are going to be, especially Vikings fans, are probably going to get a little heated over this. Be like, come on, that's my guy. And you probably already know which way I'm going with it. But I think they're going to release Adam Thielen. And I know it's... It's bold. It's a bold prediction. It's probably not going to happen, but that's what this is all about. So I'm not saying it's going to happen or anything like that, but that's my prediction. Adam Thielen will no longer be a Viking after this offseason. He's played his last game in purple, and the Vikings will draft a wide receiver in the first 3 rounds to pair with Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, and then Amir Smith-Marset. I don't know if they kind of go like the possession wide receiver route, get a more big body in there. But if Adam, he'll probably take a pay cut if they're looking to do that. He probably wants to finish his career in Minnesota. He's lived here his whole life, so I don't think it's that likely. But it's something to keep our eye out for. Did you guys have any last tidbits or anything else you want to talk about before we wrap this thing up?
I actually like that Thielen bold statement. Because I've been thinking for years, because there's been rumors about him like at certain trade deadlines being dealt to like contenders. I know the Cleveland Browns have come up as like because of the Stefanski connection, and they need a wide receiver one bad.
Yep.
I don't think Thielen will be traded, but again, that was the old regime. We don't know what Kwesi or O'Connell are thinking. For all we know, they could be cutthroat and just want to be like the Rams. And, we have no loyalty to anyone. Anyone could be moved.
Right.
And they want to put a Super Bowl caliber roster out there, which is – I think that's what it takes to win a Super Bowl in today's game. Over the past few years, I think, especially Spielman specifically, he's been a little too loyal to his players.
Oh, for sure.
Just because he drafted them, such as Anthony Barr. Should they – looking back at it now, should they have just let him go to the Jets?
Right.
At that time? because that was a lot of money for very little to no production in
Oh,
return
true.
of what the expectations were.
Yep.
But I do think that they could draft a receiver. And I know this is very unrealistic, but I've just dreamt about them drafting a Garrett Wilson or Treylon Burks at pick 12.
Right.
It's not a need, but I think you need to find another weapon to build around Justin Jefferson, have a 1 and a 2.
Yeah.
And we're running a 3 wide receiver set now. I'm not sure how I feel about KJ Osborne. Thielen can't stay healthy. Amir Smith Marset is intriguing, but he was a 5th round pick for a reason.
Right.
So I'm not sure if we're getting like Stephon Diggs vibes here.
Yep.
But I think if you did invest in a splashy receiver such as a Burks or a Garrett Wilson, you're showing that you're looking long term. But that's a really nice receiver to pair with Justin Jefferson. And in today's game, you need 3 elite wide receivers to compete. I mean, look at the past Super Bowl. The Rams had Odell Beckham. Robert Woods was hurt, but they had Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson. They invested a 2nd round in like Tutu Atwell last year. So, I mean, they've invested just on that depth at all areas. And then the Bengals, T. Higgins, 2nd round pick. Jamar Chase, top 5 pick. Tyler Boyd, former 2nd round pick. Those are 3 wide receivers that could arguably be ones on a lot of teams in the NFL.
Yep.
And the more weapons you have, the better, because you may not necessarily need an offensive line to be top tier if you could get the quick pass game going with just weapons all over the field.
Right.
And I don't know if KJ Osborne is simply the answer, because Thielen missed a lot of time last year, and the Vikings were trailing in a lot of games. So if JJ's double covered, KJ Osborne was always kind of that guy.
Right.
He showed splashes, but it's just to me, I don't know if you guys might think different, but Osborne just seems like a nice depth guy who could kind of sub in for like a week or two due to injury. He doesn't seem like a legit, like, top tier weapon that should be involved in your offense going forward. It just seems like he just had the opportunity, and when the targets are there, as long as you just don't drop the ball, you're gonna have your numbers. It just seems like I just think you need to invest in a day 1 or early day 2 pick on a receiver. And this year's draft class is very deep.
Yeah.
Maybe Justin Ross from Clemson in round 2, or trade up from round 3 into the late 2nd. I mean, there's a lot of receivers. I believe another name is Christian Watson, I think, from North Dakota State. Is that him? That's a name that's been tied to the Vikings as a 2nd-round pick. Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of like my last thing that I think they should maybe look towards. That's another bold prediction, maybe, like a Garrett Wilson at number 12. Yeah. State guy, big splashy, perfect guy to team up with Jefferson. But, just give me your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I think my draft crush right now is Treylon Burks. I think the guy is an animal. He's fast. He's big. He's the total package. And I think even if we keep Adam around, he's probably only got 1-2 like really good years left in him. I know people say, "Oh well, he was very productive last year." Well, yeah, he kept getting hurt. I mean, he can still be productive, but he hasn't been the healthiest the last few years. And even like you said with the Rams, Robert Woods got hurt, and the Rams didn't think twice, and they went and traded for Odell Beckham Jr. Even with Cooper Kupp and even with Van Jefferson, they still made that big splash trade to go get a 3rd guy. And I think, the offensive philosophy is going to change, and I think KJ Osborne is going to be one of the few guys that actually might get hurt by that. I think KJ might fit better in that wide zone, play action offense, setting up the defense. We're going to be running probably 11 personnel now. So, we need those big physical receivers, those guys that are really good route runners to be able to create separation, get open downfield. So I think it is interesting. I think they could take a wide receiver early, and I wouldn't be surprised at it at all. What do you think, Dustin?
For the draft, I feel, I don't know too many players. I don't really pay attention too much about college. But I feel like in free agency, there's a good handful of wide receivers, too, if we do happen to miss out on, the draft, too. Allen Robinson, he's not going to come to the Vikings, obviously, but I think he'll get paid somewhere else. Let's see. We got Emmanuel Sanders. He's an aging veteran, though. Mike Williams, I feel like he could fit in well as a wide receiver too. But those are just a couple examples of who I feel like could fit well here. They are looking for money too, so I don't know how much
Right.
we'll have,
Yeah,
if anything.
that'll be the important
So
thing in free agency.
um,
If we do have some money to spend, I'd probably see it go more towards the defense or the offensive line, and then maybe look at weapons in the draft a little bit more. But you never know. Like the philosophy is different now, and like we were saying, the loyalty could not be there anymore. Maybe we never know. Rick Spielman, he loved his guys that he drafted. All right, I'll give you a second contract. Let's make this work. Whereas it could be different now. So it's going to be a fun watch. Free agency's coming up not too long. Then the scouting combine. Who knows if that's going to happen? There's a big thing going on where they don't want these strict COVID restrictions within the bubble at the combine. They want to see their trainers. They want to see talk to scouts and everything like that. I don't know. It's a mess right now. So I don't know how that's going to work out. But obviously, exciting times for Vikings fans. Kind of nerve wracking. we don't know what's going to happen, but that's the fun of it. This offseason is going to be fun. What's up, Tom?
I do have an update here.
Yep.
The Vikings have hired a special teams coordinator.
Finally.
Yeah, it's going to be Matt Daniels. He's 32 years old.
He was a defensive back, wasn't he?
Yeah, former defensive back in the NFL. He was the assistant special teams coordinator with the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh.
So they've hired their special teams coordinator. Another young coach. A lot of young coaches all around besides the defensive coordinator.
Right.
Tell. But, yeah, what are your guys' initial reactions here from a very young special teams coordinator? Seems like there's not many young or special teams coordinators in the league. It's typically veteran guys.
Right. And, I think that was like the last coaching position that we needed to nail down after we lost Ryan Ficken, who was awesome last year. And, that was really too bad. Him and Keenan McCardell were the two guys that I kind of wanted to stick around for sure. And obviously that didn't work out. But like you said, we're going the young route, up and comers. Besides Ed Donatel, and I think that made sense to get a veteran, old grizzled time defense coordinator to figure out that defensive side of the ball. So that makes sense. But I don't know a ton about Matt Daniels. I knew he was a defensive back in the league, younger guy, assistant coach to Dallas. I think their special teams was pretty good this year. But I think it's going to be they've talked collaboration. At all times, I think a lot of guys are going to be collaborating within the coaching staff to get all three units to really thrive, offensive, defensively, and special teams. So, yeah, we've been waiting on that one, and Matt Daniels is your new special teams coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings.
I've been looking at the comments of this Tom Pelissero post or whatnot, and they're not. I guess Vikings fans aren't too excited about it, which I don't know anything about them.
We're never excited about anything.
Yeah. I'm not sure I've ever seen someone jump up for joy for special teams coordinator. So I'm not sure who people were expecting because you really named like a top, like who is the special teams coordinator. Like I think it just varies around the league.
Right. We got to get Jim Harbaugh here to be our special teams coordinator.
Yeah. Vikings Twitter will never be happy. The only time they will ever agree with each other and collaborate is when it comes to trading Kirk Cousins. That's the only time the fan base will unite. If not, it's always going to be an argument back and forth. That's just how it is.
Bunch of negative Nancy's, in my opinion. A lot of negativity.
We win the Super Bowl. They're playing
only wins by a field goal. Well, it should have been a touchdown.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, all right, guys. Good episode. Depending on what the week looks like, we'll try to get another one or two episodes, out this week. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Dustin. Again, you can follow Dustin at ThatVikingsFan8 and Tom at ThomasGorski33. Stay tuned for more episodes in the future. Guys, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and that thumbs up button and turn on that bell for notifications if you can. All right, guys. Thanks again, Tom. Thanks again, Dustin. We'll see you guys in the next one.